How do you think about a person, and I confess I've been this person, perhaps still am to some extent, who can really have a sense of agency and gratitude in certain domains, maybe even many domains of life, and yet feels as if there are certain areas of life that are just so much more challenging than others. Right? This like stark contrast, like this stuff works, can do that, but like this stuff is just really, really hard. And maybe that continues long enough that it almost starts to feel like, or the person wonders whether or not, maybe that part of life is inaccessible to me. It's just never going to be successful for me. How do you think about these carve outs of functionality and lack of functionality? That's probably not the right language, but I think it's important to think about these because, they are intermeshed with, and perhaps even the consequence of, narratives that we have, like stories about ourselves that we have internally. And again, I'll be the first to admit that I've felt this way for much of my life. Certain things I can do, other things far, far harder, and sometimes it felt outside the reach of possibility.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a very concise answer to this one. In fact, it's 9 words. Don't make yourself special in ways that hurt you. And we tend to do that as humans. Oh, I get to have A, B, and C, but I don't get to have D. I get to have professional success, and I'm in pretty good shape, and I have a lot of friends, but I don't get to have a relationship. I mean, over and over and over. Because the relationship part is so emotionally laden, it's the part that gets carved out, right? Falsely carved out the most, right? But it can happen in any arena of life where we make ourselves special in a way that really is black magic or is being cursed, right? You have the machinery, right? The ability, the function to go about pursuing the things you want and get them, right? That sounds like a pretty good paradigm, except about something really important to you, right? That can't be, right? We're applying the same machinery of self because we're talking about things people want on a broad scale, right? Like I would like professional success. I would like personal success. I would like to do well in my family unit and be a good family member. I would like romance, right? So we're talking about areas of self, right? And we will make ourselves special by carving out one and then applying black magic or some cursed state that then takes that away from us. And that creates tremendous consternation. That will throw all of those cupboards in those pyramids off balance because we don't like that. Like that seems mysterious and ominous. What is there that you don't know that's about being cursed so you can't have something? And then that makes anger and frustration in us, and more likely that we'll act out or we'll be frustrated and we start enjoying things less, right? Sometimes a person can wall something off like that and they can go forward with the rest of life. I mean, it affects them, but it's not obvious. It's not on their mind all the time, which is why the process of self-inquiry can reveal important things. Like I pretend that I don't even care about professional success. And why do I do that? It's the only thing I'm not doing very well. And because I think it's impossible for me. It's not something I get. Why? Because I got other things, so I don't get that. Okay, now we're really curious about that. And sometimes it causes very, very big problems where a person can build an external sense of self that soothes some of their vulnerability so they can present in a certain way. But underneath of that, they're hiding the sadness or the pain of what is missing. But that is then sort of eating away at them. And their feelings of self on the inside don't match what people see on the outside. We see a lot of this. And the process of self-inquiry, of self-exploration, of curiosity about self can lead us to realize what we've carved out if we don't already realize it, or it can help us to see that the carve-out makes no sense, right? It's as if you said, well, there are 9 roads around my home, and, they're all just regular old roads. I can drive on 8 of them, but not the 9th. And you say, well, it doesn't make any sense if they're similar. It requires the same set of skills, right? If you know how to drive the car and have the visual acuity, why wouldn't you be able to drive down the 9th? But even though that's a very mundane example, but it's that that we apply to very important and emotionally charged aspects of our life. You know, I get to have physical fitness and friends and career success, but I don't get to have love. I mean, we hear people say this, and that's a very powerful way of taking us away from what we want to achieve in life. It takes us away from the active agency and gratitude and all the good that comes of that.
What you just said makes a lot of sense, especially the point that, if we have 9 roads around us and we can drive down 8 of them, why not the 9th? Because it places us back into the verb tense and the action tense of like the car, like we're a vehicle, the I that we can take through the world, right? Sure, conditions matter. Maybe road number 9 has boulders on it. But it can't be that roads 1 through 8 were all just smooth superhighways either, right? Those had challenges, and I'm not going to use myself as an example. I, for whoever is doing this sort of exercise, had a mind that was able to work around those boulders, right? Of challenging people, of limited finances, of these are all things I've experienced, and of course people come into the world with different levels of challenge and privilege and accessibility, et cetera. We don't want to deny all of that, but those other 8 roads are rarely, if ever, perfectly smooth roads.
Right. That's why it's completely about the self, right? And it's the realization that if I brought myself to bear and I got down the first 8, I can bring myself to bear and get down the 9th. And as you're pointing out, it's not like the first 8 were easy, right? Maybe one of them was really pretty smooth, right? But there's going to be a couple of them in there that have raised really strong difficulties, things to surmount and to overcome. And it's from that place of understanding that we find within ourselves the courage, the strength to go down the 9th road, even if we see greater barriers, even if we're, okay, I'm aware now, but I'm also aware that I avoided that 9th road for a reason, right? The boulders and the potholes, right? They're more severe on that road. In fact, I'm kind of worried that it's impassable, but I mean, it can't be impassable, right? If there's boulders there, I'll go rent some excavating equipment, or I'll fill in the potholes, right? And that's how we get ourselves to go forward and to acknowledge and validate. Like, I'm afraid of doing that. If I weren't afraid of doing it, I would have done it already, right? But I now realize like what the truth is and what I brought to bear in the first 8, and I'm going to bring myself to bear for the 9th. That's also when we recruit often resources around us, where we might say, like, let me tell a couple good friends about this, or a clergy member, or a therapist, or a trusted other, and let me explore this more in myself. And that's often how in making ourselves better, we engage more with the people around us, and then the support from someone else that may help a person do that, right, is support given back to the other person. And this is also how we build the beyond self, is that the path to travel down the 9th road, so to speak, we don't have to travel alone, much of the time. But that often, almost always, wasn't in the person's mind, right? They perceive, it's a 3-person job to go down. It's like, right, you have 2 friends.